I'm alright with Mystic Gumbo, but I ain't alright with New Age Mumbo Jumbo. Mystic Gumbo is wisdom, storytelling, spiritual practices, in liberation from illusion. New Age Mumbo Jumbo is lies, deception, distraction, and bondage to a delusion. Mystic Gumbo is good for the soul. It provides comfort and sustenance to the aching bones of a weary and weather-beaten traveler. New Age Mumbo Jumbo, on the other hand, robs a traveler of the vitality of clarity and gives an existential explorer a bum steer to a dead end. So Mystic Gumbo okay? New Age Mumbo Jumbo not okay. Why? I got a comment on a recent video expressing some concern about this subject, which I'll read for you now. And I'm glad this came up, because it's a common source of confusion, as apparently many of you seem to believe that there's some exception to the rule when it comes to the thinking function. So it's overdue to be addressed. So on to the comment. It states, quote, "Hey Sage, I love your work and I'm a huge fan of yours, but I feel like you're being intellectually dishonest in a part of this video around the 11:20 mark. You start to rag on positive thinking, new age philosophies when it comes to controlling reality with positive thoughts. I could be wrong. Could be. I could be wrong, but it seems like your viewpoints on these points are coming from a negative egotistical desire to bash those particular philosophies, which really boggles my mind because positive thinking would seem like, from my point of view, to go directly hand in hand with your philosophies on solipsism. The reason I say this is because if you believe consciousness is within one's own mind, you should be able to directly control the physical world based off of your focus. Because in reality, the physical world is simply thoughts, or in other words, a focused state of being. I don't understand how New Age thinking, positive thinking, and solipsism can contradict each other, and you seem to be saying they do. Very confusing. If awareness, consciousness is the base fundamental building block of this reality, how you focus your consciousness would seem to be the way for an individual to have reality mirror one's desires. I have noticed in all your videos where you talk about consciousness and ego, you like to steer away people from thinking that they can control reality, which you never really explain why. Which makes me believe that you're infusing your personal beliefs as opposed to giving people the real truth on the fundamental base reality rules of consciousness awareness. Because if all things being equal and solipsism is true, one should be able to have the ability to focus one's attention on one's desires and manifest it accordingly. My question for you is, how do these contradict, and are you infuse your own egotistical viewpoints on solipsism? Which I think you are, because it makes solipsism seem more spiritual, for a lack of a better word, which I hope I'm wrong, because it would really make me sad that my favorite teacher would have his own alternative motive." Unquote. To this I replied, quote, "Sorry you don't like it, but it's the raw truth. Thoughts can't levitate objects. Thoughts don't manifest miracles. When you get tangible results, it's from effort. It's not from any magical secret or the universe granting you a wish. It's from effort. Like I already said, positive thoughts can lead to actions, and actions can bring results. It's as simple as that. But if you listened to the video, you would know that I said gaining control over dream phenomena involves lucidity. This involves quieting the mind. Something like psychokinesis isn't practiced by having thoughts. It's a functionality that can be uncovered by the cessation of thoughts." Unquote. Seems pretty clear, no? But then he made another comment saying, quote, Wow, Sage, you're starting to sound like a materialist. You're honestly the last person on the face of the planet that I would have ever thought would type the words, "Thoughts don't manifest miracles." What about the placebo effect, double splits experiment slash observer effect, as well as unexplained coincidence and people that have precognitive psychic dreams, which I definitely have experienced personally. And I'm sure you are aware of all these things as well, so maybe I'm conflating the words thoughts, consciousness, and awareness. So from my definitional understanding, thoughts would be the process of one's mental focus on the material realm, consciousness would be the recognition of one's thoughts, and awareness would be the baseline, unfiltered reality of existence and what we truly are. But to me, all three of those things would seem to go hand in hand, and you would need all three components for any type of sentient being to operate in any type of framework. I say all of that to tie back into my original point that an individual does have the ability to control reality based off their focus. You seem to be putting restrictions on something that is restrictionless, unquote. To which I replied again, saying, quote, much of your misunderstanding stems from a faulty premise that you are holding to be true. And in this case, it's that thoughts have important functional utility. They may have important functional utility, but only towards the mundane layer of existence. This has been a constant theme all throughout my many years of unteaching, so I'm not sure why you are acting surprised now. But I know why. It's because you've never liked this implication, due to your heavy attachments to the egoic identity. Yeah, Charlie. You desire to possess and control dream phenomena. But the perennial wisdom is clearly pointing away from all that. Every example that you listed has nothing to do with thoughts. Focus has nothing to do with thoughts. This conflation is the reason you are stuck. These things have more to do with the subconscious mind and the clear seeing of pure awareness. Thoughts are not the will or the intent. Thoughts are egoic narration. Narration can provide direction to an ego, especially when directed towards the mundane layer. But that's about it. But since we are not egos, thoughts are ultimately detrimental towards enlightenment and compose the difficulty of overcoming the obstacles of misidentification and mental slavery. If you have doubts, then give it a try. Lock yourself in a room and think about $1 million getting dropped on your doorstep. Then wait until it manifests. Let's see if the universe magically makes it happen, or if the secret magnetic law of attraction pulls it towards you. Let me know how that works out. Unquote. So that was the exchange, and I'd like to expand on this a little more, as this aspect seems to dog the steps of many existential explorers. It's this over-reliance on a security blanket, the thinking function. And this over-reliance on the thinking function is the most common cause of misidentification, which is what enables the overall state of mental slavery. René Descartes followed similar tracks with cogito ergo sum. But to think that thoughts have some kind of fundamental primacy is a form of externalism. I know it doesn't seem that way, as we like to think about thoughts as being an introspective utility, but this isn't the case. Thoughts themselves are inference and attribution. They are still a reference to illusion as a reinforcement of an identification. Thoughts are a tool of the ego, and the ego is part of the unified stream up on the screen of sensory perception. The constant yammering of the thoughts is what fosters distraction from our true identity, the empty self. This is the primary reason there is diversion from the whole, and this misguided sense of a fractured identity. You can't stop thoughts, and the object isn't to eliminate them. But they certainly aren't the proper place to assume an identity. So the problem is a misplaced sense of identity. You aren't an egoic character running around in a world, suffering and orgasming. That's all part of phantasmagorical delusion. And the thinking function will only try to constantly reinforce that you are the illusory ego. It also dictates all of your many limitations by the continuous fortification of the mental blockades that keep you in the box. But the way out isn't by thinking outside of the box either. Thinking, no matter if it's in the box or outside of the box, is a distraction to overcome. If one is at all genuinely interested in lucidity, if one is predominantly concerned with the ego in the world of illusion, then thinking is the right tool for the job. But as far as lucid awareness, enlightenment, and beyond, thinking can be a hindrance, and often an obstruction to the purity of the Zen mind. Which is exactly why it is also very hard to accept that when it comes to the discovery, gradual intimacy, and subsequent command of the fundamental truth, the process won't be a matter of studying or the gathering of knowledge. It's not going to be a question of navigating an external world and cataloging discoveries. It won't be historical research, contemporary experiments, or the gathering and testing of material samples. Just let it go. But you want to control dream phenomena, don't you? You want to elevate your egoic status into that of a god, and then command everything within your awareness. Of course you do. It's only natural for a completely limited ego to desire this, just as a completely limitless God craves restrictions in order to gain self-awareness. The limited ego desires complete power to lose himself in. It's a vicious cycle to get caught up in. Better to see it from the meta and step back from it. Then it's seen as a complete hamster on a wheel. So do you see what the problem becomes when lucidity is realized? When you are lucid enough to command phenomena, the power to actually do so loses all its purpose when you realize the phenomena is all a product of your own mind. Power over the content of one's own mind is only craved by one who is in delusion that there is some literal character existing in some objectified location. Then it seems as if you are gaining something real and material by getting command of these so-called objects and materials. But clarity shows this is all just masturbation and a blindfold. So yes, I am steadfast in my criticism of theistic religions that place a lot of stock in faith and judgment. I am unwavering in my condemnation of New Age mumbo-jumbo philosophies that extol the magic of belief or the power of positive thinking. If you can't see that this is all just a scam to sell books and DVDs so some opportunistic entrepreneur can make a fast buck by preying on people's insecurities and desires, then I don't know what else to tell you. But I guess that this isn't all that surprising, as most of you are willfully devoted to circumventing the truth in favor of a delusion. Most of you have not yet gotten a fill of the gluttonous indulgence in the passing show. So naturally, you gravitate towards things that promise to improve your delusion. It's understandable. So when you finally get done with all that, maybe you can then start to familiarize yourself with the fundamental truth. Until then, I'll be waiting. Mr. Gumbo? Hell yes. New Age Mumbo Jumbo? Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. Yeah, chala.